The key to understanding about enzymes in digestion for module B2 is understanding the names of the enzymes, or remembering the names of the enzymes and what substances they work on. So, for example, in this first one here, we've got starch is broken down into sugars, and it's broken down by an enzyme called amylase. If you were to draw it diagrammatically, the starch looks like a long chain, and when you break it down into the sugars with amylase, it's broken down into these smaller units. The other one that you need to know about is an enzyme called protease, and this breaks down protein into its building blocks called amino acids. And again, if you were to look at the diagram, you would see a long chain of these various different amino acids broken down into the individual ones through this enzyme called protease. The last one that you have to know and remember is lipids being broken down into fatty acids and glycerol. Lipids is another word for fat, and this is broken down by an enzyme called lipase, and the products are fatty acids, which are these chain-like molecules, and glycerol, which is this molecule over here. Okay, so if you can know and remember this, it will make the rest of the topic a lot easier. Now, in terms of the digestive process itself, I've got the key parts of the digestive system here, and what actually happens is that in the stomach and in the small intestine we have glands, and in fact the pancreas as well, we have glands, and these produce these key enzymes. Now, the enzymes that are produced in the pancreas and in the stomach and in the small intestine are enzymes that work outside of cells. So they're produced by the glands and then secreted or put into the stomach or the small intestine so that they can do their work on the food that you eat. Now, just as a reminder, up here I've written out the key substances and the enzymes, and to start off with, to make it nice and easy, if you start at the top, just remember that the mouth only does one bit of digesting, and that converts starch into sugars. That's all the mouth does. It doesn't digest any other food type. In terms of the stomach, in a similar way, it only works on one particular food type. It converts protein into amino acids through this enzyme called protease, and that's the only thing that those two do. Then, to make it nice and simple, just remember that the small intestine does everything. So you can bring all three down here. And to keep it nice and simple still, the pancreas also produces all the three enzymes. It doesn't actually digest the food itself, it puts these enzymes into the small intestine here. You can see there's a tube and it empties these enzymes into the small intestine in order to help with the digestion. So basically we have the mouth, which just does starch into sugars with amylase, the stomach that just does protein into amino acids with protease, pancreas produces all three, small intestine produces all three. And that should make it slightly simpler to understand. The other thing that you do need to know is that the stomach produces acid, and the enzymes that work in the stomach work best in an acid environment. The other issue then is that once the food comes out of the stomach, it's acidic, but that problem is solved by this thing over here, which is the liver. And the liver produces a substance called bile. And this bile, while stored in this little structure here called the gallbladder, bile is an alkali. So what happens here is, if you can see the gallbladder here, if the bile is stored in there, it can empty its contents again into the small intestine, so anything that's coming out of the stomach that's acidic can get neutralized and actually made into an alkali condition, so that the enzymes in the small intestine can work. In fact, the small intestine enzymes work best in alkali conditions. Okay, so this is a slide that's probably worth going over one more time just to make sure you're clear about the different aspects of digestion. But just if you feel happy with it, just as a little revision exercise for this video, we've got the mouth, stomach, pancreas, and small intestine. And if you remember, the mouth produces a substance called amylase, the stomach protease, and remember, the pancreas produces all three, the small intestine produces all three. Hopefully that's quite simple to remember. And then the next level up from that is, well, what does this enzyme do? For the mouth, it's starch into sugars. The protease is protein into amino acids. And then, as we know, the small intestine, all three. And while the pancreas does produce these three enzymes, remember, it doesn't digest the food itself, it just empties these enzymes into the small intestine so it can again work on doing these three.